Hello, and welcome to your YouTube channel, Learn English Lab. Today's podcast topic name is American Small Talk Mastery, How to Chat Confidently with Native Americans.
It is so great to be here. This is a topic that I am just incredibly passionate about,
Absolutely, and we are going on a real deep dive today into something that, well, it honestly terrifies a lot of advanced English learners.
Oh, terrifies is the right word. It is a very specific kind of panic.
Right. So I want you to imagine this scenario. You are the listener, right? You've spent years, maybe decades, mastering English.
You know all the grammar rules.
Exactly.
Yeah.
You've conquered the labyrinth of English grammar. You read academic journals, no problem. You could probably stand in front of a university lecture hall and deliver this flawless presentation on, say, macroeconomic policy.
Sure, or like the complexities of global climate change. Your vocabulary is top tier.
Right. But then you step away from the podium. You walk into the office break room.
Yeah.
The hum of the refrigerator is the only sound.
The dreaded break room silence.
You pour yourself a cup of coffee. A colleague walks in, gives you a passing glance, smiles and says, "Crazy weather we're having, right?"
Then, boom.
System failure.
Completely. In that fraction of a second, your mind just flatlines. You freeze. The silence stretches out.
And you're just standing there clutching your mug.
Desperately searching this vast internal database of C1 and C2 vocabulary, and all you manage to squeak out is, yes, the weather.
It is the universal nightmare. We hear about this specific paralysis all the time. The contrast is just staggering,
It really is. Why does that happen? Is our vocabulary just failing us in the moment?
Well, no, that's the fascinating part. At the C1 or C2 level, the problem is almost never your vocabulary. You have the words. The failure is entirely contextual.
That's such a great point. It feels like a cognitive processing delay. Like my brain is running a diagnostic check to find the absolute most grammatically perfect response.
Right, and by the time you formulate that perfect sentence, the moment is gone. Your colleague has already grabbed their coffee and left. And you're just standing there analyzing your failure. So if it's not a vocabulary issue, what are we actually dealing with here?
We are dealing with an entirely different kind of fluency. It's not linguistic anymore. It's cultural fluency. You are treating the interaction like an exam question.
Oh, well, yeah. Looking for the correct answer.
Exactly. But in reality, your colleague is not asking you for a meteorological assessment. They do not care about the barometric pressure.
Right. They're initiating a social ritual.
Yes. And recognizing that ritual is the first step. Because, calling it small talk feels incredibly deceptive.
It really does. The word small implies it's trivial, right?
Yeah.
Like it's just a meaningless little extra thing you do if you happen to have the time.
But it's arguably the greatest misnomer in American business culture. It minimizes something that is actually an imperative.
Right. So it's not just a bonus skill or a luxury. It's an absolute necessity and an imperative for surviving in the workplace.
Perfectly said. Opting out of this imperative carries serious, very tangible consequences.
Let's talk about those stakes. What actually happens if you just, choose to stay silent?
Well, think about a standard corporate environment. Let's say you walk into a conference room 10 minutes before a big strategy meeting.
Okay, setting the scene.
There are 3 senior colleagues already seated, and they're just staring at their phones in silence.
Very awkward.
Right. Now, the person who can effortlessly step into that room, read the atmosphere, and fill that silence with comfortable, light conversation, that person immediately shifts the power dynamic.
Because they project confidence. They're basically signaling that they belong in that room.
Exactly. It makes everyone else feel at ease.
They act as a kind of social thermostat, setting a warm temperature for the room, and the halo effect of that must be enormous.
Oh, it dictates the entire trajectory of your professional relationships. It influences who gets invited to lunch, who gets looped into high visibility projects.
And ultimately, who gets promoted. Because if you appear relaxed and approachable, people are just unconsciously going to trust you more.
Yes, but here is the tragedy. If you remain silent because you are afraid of making a grammatical mistake, your colleagues don't know that.
Right, they can't see your linguistic anxiety.
No, they misinterpret your silence. They perceive arrogance. They think you are aloof or lacking in team spirit.
That is terrifying. You could be the most dedicated person on the team, but because you didn't comment on the traffic, you're labeled as unapproachable.
Which is why learners need to stop blaming their language proficiency. The hurdle here is almost entirely psychological.
Okay, so overcoming that psychological block, that requires confronting some deep-seated cultural friction, right?
Immense friction. For a lot of advanced learners, engaging in American-style small talk feels actively unnatural. It requires the specific performative warmth.
Performative warmth, I want to linger on that. Because, I think adapting to it can feel almost fake sometimes.
It can feel very disingenuous if it's not your native culture.
But wait, for a lot of our listeners, asking a stranger about their shoes or the weather feels totally unnatural, right? Like if I do that on a subway in Eastern Europe, people will look at me like I'm crazy.
They will look at you with deep suspicion. In many global cultures, discussing mundane topics with strangers is viewed as completely frivolous.
Absolutely. If someone feels like you're prying into their life or just wasting time with frivolous chatter, they'll shut down.
Right. It's seen as a waste of breath. Or even intrusive, like you are invading their personal space without earning the right to do so.
We are here to work. My weekend is none of your business. That kind of mindset.
Exactly. And when an English learner brings that ingrained baseline into an American office, the culture clash is severe.
So what's the mindset shift? How do we bridge that gap?
You have to genuinely internalize that these exchanges carry real social weight in the US. It's not fake. It's a signal.
So they're broadcasting a message like, I acknowledge you, I'm friendly, I'm open to connecting.
Yes. You have to believe that the ritual serves a vital purpose.
It reminds me of the mechanics of a submarine.
Oh, tell me more about that.
So these comments aren't really about the weather or the coffee line at all. It's almost like a sonar ping on a submarine.
I love that analogy.
You're in this deep, dark corporate ocean. You're just sending out a signal to see if someone is there and willing to engage. You want to ping back.
The sonar ping, it's brilliant because it removes the pressure from the actual words. To show how damaging it is to ignore those pings, we should look at Priya's story.
Oh, yes. The Priya example from our deep dive prep, she was a data scientist from Hyderabad, right?
Yes, a brilliant data scientist. She relocated to Chicago for a job at a highly competitive tech firm. Her English was immaculate.
C2 level, easily.
Absolutely. But for her first 3 months, she ate lunch alone at her desk every single day. She felt completely isolated.
Which is so sad. Was her team just toxic or unfriendly?
That is the most painful part. Her team wasn't toxic at all. They were actually quite gregarious. The problem was an invisible mismatch in expectations.
Right, because she came from a culture where professional relationships are built on deep, substantial discussions.
She was waiting for someone to ask about her thesis on predictive modeling.
And instead, she's getting the classic American hallway pings. Happy Friday, staying warm.
Exactly. And because she was waiting for a profound intellectual exchange, she dismissed all of those passing remarks.
She thought they were just superficial pleasantries.
Right. So someone would say, staying warm out there, and she would give a tight smile, say yes, and just keep walking.
She probably thought she was being efficient. But to her colleagues, she was ignoring the sonar pings.
She was shutting the door. Her colleagues interpreted her brevity as a desire to be left alone.
So what was the turning point for her? How did she fix it?
A senior mentor finally pulled her aside and explained it. He said, Priya, when Americans say Happy Friday, they are not informing you of the day of the week.
Right, they know what day it is.
They are opening a door, and you have to actively choose to walk through it.
That's the first dimension of the architecture, right? The opening gambit.
The opening gambit, yes. It's the initial move, and it's incredibly formulaic. Weather, immediate environment, light compliments.
So Priya didn't need to invent a brilliant topic.
Yeah.
She just needed to accept the gambit.
Exactly. Once she understood that, her entire dynamic changed.
So if we role-play Priya's transformation, before someone says, Happy Friday, and she says, yes, it is, the door slams shut.
But after the advice, someone says, Happy Friday, and she walks through the door. She says, oh, I know, I've been counting down the hours. Do you have any fun weekend plans?
It's a massive shift. She validated the premise and then threw the ball back into their court.
But surviving that initial gambit only gets you into the room.
Right. The opening gambit unlocks the door, but the real connection is what happens next. If you don't keep it going, the door just closes behind you.
This is where most advanced learners stumble. They survive the greeting, but they lack the stamina to keep it alive.
The mechanics of thriving versus surviving. You call this the art of the follow-up.
Or thread pulling. Imagine every sentence as a piece of woven fabric.
Okay, I'm visualizing it.
A skilled conversationalist listens intently to find one tiny, interesting, loose thread, and they gently pull on it to weave a new direction.
Thread pulling. I really like that. It means you don't have to generate topics out of thin air. The other person is handing you the material.
Let's deeply analyze the hiking example we discussed. A colleague walks in and says, "Yeah, I finally got out and went hiking over the weekend."
If you just want to survive, you give a dead-end response.
Oh, nice.
The thread drops. Awkward silence returns.
But if you pull the thread, a native speaker might say, "Oh, I've been meaning to get out more. Where did you go? I've heard the trails up north are gorgeous this time of year."
Oh, wow. I want to marvel at the mechanics of that response because there are 4 brilliant moves packed into 2 tiny sentences.
Let's break those 4 moves down. Move number 1.
Move 1 is the acknowledgement. The "oh." It sounds trivial, but it validates their statement. It proves you're listening.
Move number 2 establishes a personal connection. "I've been meaning to get out more."
Right, sharing a micro-vulnerability. You're aligning yourself with them.
Move number 3 is the follow-up question. "Where did you go?" Handing the microphone back to them.
And move 4 adds a little extra detail to keep momentum. "I've heard the trails up north are gorgeous."
Which gives them options. They can answer the direct question or comment on your northern trails observation.
Native speakers are incredibly adept at this.
They really are. They do it completely unconsciously.
That's a great way to put it. They are so skilled, so adept at just grabbing a tiny detail and weaving a whole conversation out of it.
And we use a specific collocation for this. We don't usually say we're going to start a conversation.
We say we are going to strike up a conversation.
Yeah, strike up feels so dynamic.
It's like lighting a match, right? Starting a car is just turning a key, mechanical.
Yeah.
But striking a match requires that quick friction to create a spark.
And then thread pulling is the oxygen that turns that spark into a fire.
But wait, how hot should that fire burn? Because the expectation of enthusiasm can really shock learners.
Oh, the cultural frequencies vary drastically. The US, the UK, Australia, they all have different expectations.
Let's compare them. Because if you take the high-energy US style into a UK office, people might think you're unhinged.
Exactly. The UK frequency operates on understatement. It's much drier.
So if I announce I just bought a house, a British colleague might just give a polite smile and say, "Oh, that's rather lovely. Good for you."
Right. Supportive, but the volume is at a 3. But in the US,
The American effusiveness. The volume goes to a 9. "Oh my God, that's amazing. Congratulations. Show me pictures."
the enthusiasm is mandatory. And then you have Australia, which is a whole different vibe.
The Aussie vibe. They lean into self-deprecating humor and casual irreverence.
Yes. An Australian manager might say, "How you going, mate? Surviving the Monday madness."
Right, that casual irreverence where they don't take things too seriously and maybe even poke fun at themselves, it can definitely catch a newcomer off guard.
If you reply with stiff formality, you kill the vibe completely.
So if our listener specifically wants to master the American style, what's the secret?
You have to lean into that high-energy warmth. Share small personal details to build camaraderie.
Camaraderie, that feeling of team spirit and friendship that makes a workplace bearable. But trying to build that camaraderie brings up a major pain point.
The invisible lines.
Yes, the fear of accidentally crossing boundaries and making things super awkward.
It is terrifying for advanced learners. You want to show interest, but you don't want to step on a conversational landmine.
So let's define the safe zone. What are the foolproof, bulletproof topics?
The absolute safest bets are the weather, weekend plans, food and restaurants, travel, sports, entertainment like movies, and pets.
Always ask about the dog.
Always. And light workplace observations work too. The new coffee machine, traffic, things like that.
Okay, so what are the off-limits topics? What should we avoid?
Salary, age, weight, physical appearance, politics, religion, relationship problems.
But wait, I've definitely heard Americans overshare at the office. I've heard people loudly complain about bad Tinder dates in the break room. Are these rules really set in stone?
That is the trickiest part. The boundaries shift depending on the context.
Right. A Friday happy hour is very different from a Monday morning elevator ride.
Exactly. Or look at corporate culture. A tech startup in Silicon Valley will blur those personal lines constantly.
While a corporate law firm in Manhattan will be incredibly strict and formal. So you really have to master certain idioms to navigate this.
There are 3 quintessential C1, C2 expressions that describe exactly how to handle this shifting landscape. The first is read the room.
Oh, I love that one. It's all about sensing the energy. If everyone is stressed out about a massive deadline, you don't start joking about your weekend.
You adjust your strategy immediately, which links to the second idiom, picking up on social cues.
Right. Noticing body language.
Yes, and tone. Are their feet pointed toward the exit? Are they giving you rapid, one-word answers?
If they are, you need to let them go. And the third idiom,
Breaking the ice.
Using humor to relieve tension in a totally silent, awkward room. Like joking about the slow elevator.
Precisely. Now, before we give our listeners the practical toolkit, I want to pose a self-reflection challenge.
That's so important. What should they reflect on?
I want the listener to think about their own native language's small talk rules. What topics are normal back home that might be taboo in English?
You have to recognize your own ingrained habits to overcome that unconscious resistance to an alien social ritual.
Once you map your own biases, you can build your starter kit.
Let's give them that actionable day one advice, the small talk starter kit. You've identified 5 specific go-to phrases.
Yes. Phrase 1 is an upgrade to, how are you? Instead, ask, how's your week going so far?
Oh, that's brilliant. How are you? Just gets in try. I'm fine. But how's your week going so far? Invites a narrative.
Exactly. Phrase 2 taps into pop culture.
Oh,
Have you been watching anything good lately?
everyone is binge watching something. It's the perfect safe zone topic.
Phrase 3 is about the local area. I've been meaning to try that new coffee shop down the street. Have you been yet?
People love being experts on their own city. Phrase 4.
Workplace specific. I heard you're working on the Henderson project. How's that going?
Very smooth. Validating their hard work without being nosy. And the 5th phrase.
It's actually a piece of advice for all of them. You must practice these out loud.
Right. Focusing on rhythm and intonation. If you sound like a robot, it fails.
But even with these phrases, sometimes you get caught off guard. That brings us to the ultimate safety net, the 2-sentence rule.
The 2-sentence rule. This is pure gold. How does it work?
Whenever someone makes a comment, respond with exactly 2 sentences. Sentence 1, acknowledge. Sentence 2, add new info.
Let's do a role play to show this, the cold weather example.
Okay, you be the American colleague walking into the break room.
I walk in shivering. Ugh, it is so cold today. Now give me the flat panic response.
Yeah, it is.
Dead end. The conversation dies instantly. Now let's use the 2-sentence rule. Ugh, it is so cold today.
I know, I was not prepared. I need to invest in a proper winter coat this weekend.
Look at that. Sentence 1, I know I was not prepared, acknowledges my pain. Sentence 2, I need to invest in a proper coat. Gives me a hook.
It removes all the pressure to be brilliant.
Because now I can talk about where to buy coats or how expensive they are. Let's do one more. I sigh and say, man, I am so glad it's finally Friday.
Me too. This week felt endless. I'm just planning to crash on the couch and watch movies tomorrow.
Seamless. It acts as a clear invitation. And what if we need to change the topic entirely?
You use the golden transition phrase. That reminds me of.
It's the ultimate bridge to keep conversation flowing naturally across totally different topics.
It connects anything. The rain is awful. That reminds me of a trip I took to Seattle. Boom, you're talking about travel.
This has been incredibly eye-opening. To summarize the main takeaway for you, the listener, American small talk is a learnable logic. It's not an innate talent.
You don't have to be born with a magical charisma.
You already have the vocabulary. Now you just need to take it out of the classroom and into the coffee shop. Send out the pings and give native speakers a thread to pull.
I want to leave the listener with a final thought to mull over. Think about this. When you finally master the rhythm and warmth of American small talk, you aren't just copying a culture.
Wait, really? What's happening then?
You might actually discover a completely new, expressive side of your own personality that only exists when you speak English.
That is such a powerful idea, unlocking a new version of yourself. If you enjoyed today's discussion, please like, share, and subscribe to this YouTube channel. We cannot wait to hear how your next small talk goes. We will see you next time.